Hello, my beautiful beings, and welcome to this very special podcast episode today. Now, for those of you that have just stumbled across my podcast, this is going to be a very personal life update. It's not a reflection of what all my other episodes are about. So if you're stumbling across and I'm just talking all about myself and my life, and my episodes are not normally about that. This is for my audience that have come along on the journey with me and want to hear all about the birth story of my twin boys. And everything about it. I'm not just going to tell you the story of the birth and a bit of a life update because I haven't recorded for about 2 months now, even though episodes have been coming out, but I personally have not been recording. But I'm also going to be answering a bunch of the questions that you guys sent through on Instagram as well. Last week I asked you any questions around how I'm experiencing things or whatever you want to hear from my angle. I will be answering as many of those as possible. So, without further ado, let's get fucking into the birth story of the twins. So, there's just I don't even know where to begin, but what I am going to say is that overall, as you guys saw, especially if you guys watched the videos or if you follow me on socials, my pregnancy was very, very good. I had a really, really healthy, normal pregnancy considering that I was pregnant with identical twins. And identical twins in general, but then even more so identical twins because they share a placenta, it comes with the potential of there being a lot of risks. But mine ended up being quite a seamless pregnancy. And because of that, I was actually able to have a relatively normal life in the lead up. I know a lot of people don't have that experience. So it's really important that when I talk about my experience versus other people's experience, just to take that with a grain of salt because, everyone's going to have a different journey when they go through their pregnancy. But considering it was twins, it was amazing. Shit got fucking hard in the last, I want to say 4 weeks, 6 to 4 weeks, but the last 4 weeks, the last 2, I cannot tell you how swollen my legs were. When I say tubes, I mean they were tubes. My knees had no wrinkles. Close your eyes and picture a wrinkleless knee, okay? Stretched out, like when the leg is straight. It was just a tube, 2 tubes of fluid. I would push down on my foot or my where the shin bone supposedly is, and it would just be like a divot that would be there for, you could fill the pocket up with water if you wanted to. It was hardcore. I was, very slow. Weirdly, I didn't waddle, but I was very slow. My pelvis started to hurt. I never got back pain. That's another weird thing, considering how huge I was out in front. I'm talking massive. These twins, there was over 6 kilo of baby in there, plus the placenta, plus all the fluid. It was full on. In the 5 days, before I get into the actual birth story, in the 5 days from when I went in, just before birthing to when I left the hospital, I lost 20 kilos, okay? 20 kilos. So you just imagine how much mass I was carrying on top of the fact that then you're obviously going to put on a bit of weight and whatever. So it was just wild what my body went through in the lead up to that. And that's on carrying twins. So any of you guys listening who have carried twins, I'm sure maybe not all of you, but a bunch of you would be like, yep, I hear you. I've been through that. So that was the lead up. I was definitely ready to birth these babies. I was so ready. I did not know what the gender would be. Also, if you guys want to know the whole story about how I found out about the twins, all of that, there is an episode on that I've released around, I think it was March or April. So go check that one out because I won't retell that story because it exists. Anyway, so we wanted the gender to be a surprise. I really pushed for it to be a surprise, and then Tyrone fully got on board with it. So when we, had the cesarean booked, when we decided to go into the hospital, all of that, it was all going to be a surprise. We had no idea that they were going to be boys. So on the day of the birth, we had the cesarean scheduled for 1 p.m. on the 1st of September. And in Australia, we consider spring to start on the 1st of September. I know in pretty much every other country in the world, spring starts on the 22nd or whatever. But I thought it was really cool that at least in Australia, they were born on the first day of spring. And we had decided with the obstetrician that if we get to full term for twins, which is 37 weeks, which would be a huge feat, and we were really hoping we could get there, but it's kind of not within your control, then that would be the day that we get them out, because any longer than 37 weeks could pose other risks as well. And, the placenta being quite big and all these other things. Anyway, we decided if they get to 37 weeks, we are cesareaning them out, okay? We also did discuss that even if they did come earlier, we would still opt for the cesarean route. And the reason for that is a lot of people ask, like, did you want to try vaginal? Did you this? Did you that? When I first found out I was pregnant before knowing they were twins, I did want to try a vaginal birth. I thought, you know what, if there are no complications, why not? Let's just do it. Let's give it a go. I'm also not against needing a cesarean or wanting a cesarean. I just thought, look, if there's no reason why not to, then let's just try. Then when I found out that I was pregnant with twins, I did consider it for a hot 1.5 seconds, like maybe I could still, do it. And there are many people that birth their twins vaginally, and, that's, beautiful. But I had long talks with my obstetrician, and he said, look, there's just many things that can happen. A, you can birth the twins vaginally and they both get birthed perfectly fine. Everything's great. B, you birth one vaginally and then the other one is no longer head down. It kind of flips around while twin A is being birthed, and then it's breech, and then it ends up them having to try and pull it out, and then they can't. There's complications, and then they have to cesarean the second one out. Or there's going to be complications in general, and you've got to emergency cesarean them both out. It didn't appeal to me to go through a vaginal birth and a cesarean, 2 in 1. It's not to mention an emergency cesarean, and then have to proceed to heal while parenting twins. I was like, that's not what I want. What I want is to be the most sane and intact possible version of myself when I then have 2 newborns to look after. Not that I even have to justify it. It's not even about justifying, but that's where my head was at. So I was very happy with the fact that we kind of were, it's almost like the decision was taken away from me in a good way. And I was like, I feel really good about this now. I've discussed it. I don't really like the odds for me. So I really like the idea of a planned cesarean. We decided that the only way I'd be having a vaginal birth is if I rolled into hospital fully dilated well before the 37-week mark. And then, of course, we would try, because then there's other complications if you kind of stop the process mid-birth thing. Anyway, so that's where I was at. We made it to 37 weeks. This was a huge achievement. Really, I didn't really achieve it. It's not within your control, but it was a huge achievement. We were very excited. And in the theatre, I obviously had Tyrone, my partner, and I asked my sister to be at the birth with me. Stephanie has been on this podcast. If you guys have been to the live show, you would have met Stephanie at the merch stand. She is my fucking ride or die human being on earth. And I feel like when you are giving birth, whether it's a cesarean or whether it's vaginal, it is one of the most vulnerable moments of the mother's life, right? So I thought, who do I want there? They're my 2 closest people. That's Tyrone and Stephanie. So she was pumped. She was thrilled. She came over in the morning. We had to be at the hospital at 10:30. She came over at 9:30. I woke up that morning. Guys, this was my morning, the day of the birth. I woke up. I had like an omelette very early on because I had to have stopped eating by 6 o'clock in the morning. So I had a very early breakfast. Then I crawled back into bed and I watched the Formula One replay that was from the night before. So I'm just relaxing in bed, watching the Formula One. I felt very chilled, very relaxed, had a shower. Then my sister comes over. I can no longer eat or like have coffee or anything like that. So I'm just on the water at that point. And then Tyrone's dad picks us up, and Tyrone's dad takes Stephanie, Tyrone, and I to the hospital. We birthed at the Mater in Sydney. So we rock up to the hospital and we say bye to Tyrone's dad, and then we've got to do all this like paperwork, and then we get taken up to the room that I'm going to be in. And we're kind of waiting for about 2 hours before the surgery. And can I tell you, a planned cesarean is so cool, calm and collected and relaxed. So a lot of people were like, were you stressed? I was so calm. I was the opposite of stressed. They make you feel so good there, and it's obviously going to be a very different experience to an emergency cesarean. So everything, you got all the time in the world. They give you so much time. You're there so early. Then we met the midwife, Jerry. She was a legend. She's so cool. She even said to me afterwards that she had actually stayed back longer in her shift, because when I went in for surgery, she then stayed. Her shift had ended, but she stayed because she wanted wanted to find out what the gender was of the twins and how it all went. So they were just such a beautiful team of midwives there. Anyway, so we get there, they're doing all my tests and stuff. They put me in that weird gown where, you're naked underneath and you're wearing this gown. And I was like so enormous. They're like checking for the heart rate of both the twins. They're monitoring my blood pressure. They're doing all of that. But I'm just kind of chilling there. And then Tyrone was like, does anyone want to eat something? Does anyone want to eat? Stephanie, surely you want to eat? Surely. And she's like, oh no, I'm fine. He's like, you'll eat, surely. And he was pacing, like he was so much more stressed than I was. Anyway, he leaves and then he comes back with like a full meal for Stephanie. And she was like, well, what about your meal? He was like, no, I can't eat. I'm too stressed. She's like, I didn't want to eat anyway. Anyway, so then they get dressed up in the green scrubs and finally we're ready to get wheeled in. So from my room, I stay in this bed and we get wheeled into like the pre-theater room. And honestly, I was in the best mood. I was on a high. I'm waving to all the nurses. I'm like, oh, I'll see you with my 2 kids. Like and I wasn't drugged yet, by the way. I was just very much in the best mood of my life. We get wheeled into the pre-theater room and we're there. The anaesthetist was a legend. We're just bantering with the nurse, the anaesthetist. That's when he went in and did the spinal block. Now, the spinal block is different to an epidural. And I've done a brain fact on the difference between a spinal block and an epidural. And it's really interesting because you actually inject into a different space. One is in the epidural space and one is in the subarachnoid space. An epidural, they leave the cannula in your back and they're able, which is like not a hard needle, it's a soft thing, and they're able to administer more of the drug than when they need. A spinal block, they just go in, bang once, and it lasts for about 2 hours and then it starts to wear off. There's different strengths. The spinal block is a lot stronger. It's definite, like you're losing all your temperature and pain sensation, but you do feel pressure. Whereas an epidural, depending on how much they administer, you might still actually feel certain things. And some people report that they get the epidural, but they still feel, their legs, or they still feel certain things. Anyway, so I got the spinal block. The most painful thing of the entire experience pre-birth, because obviously healing was very painful, but pre-birth was the local injection. And he got Tyrone to stand in front of me. Tyrone's like a bit squeamish, so he's like, I'm not watching that. Meanwhile, Stephanie, my sister's like filming the whole thing, filming the needle go into my back. She loves that shit. Anyway, so Tyrone was in front of me. I'm squeezing his hand so hard as the local goes in. It stings for about 3 seconds and then that was it. And then very soon after, he's like, okay, yep, now I'm going to go in. Like that local is very fast acting, very strong. And then he's going in with the spinal block. I did not feel a thing. And Stephanie was like, holy shit, that's such a big needle. I'm just like, I'm glad I didn't see it. I'm pretty good with needles and stuff. But and Tyrone's like, oh, Steph, stop. Stop talking about it. Because anyway, apparently it was hectic. Glad I didn't see it. I didn't feel a thing. That went in and it was so fast because he puts it in and he says, you're going to start to feel this kind of rush from your toes all the way up your legs, and then it's going to be tingling. And as he's saying it, it's happening. It was so fast that I'm like, oh my God, I need to lie back down. And they're like lifting my legs up and swinging me back onto the bed because I was like, if it's now or never, otherwise they're going to have to do it for me because I could not. My legs already were like just going dead. Anyway, then our obstetrician comes in and he's like, linking the speaker to our playlist because I've got you should hear the playlist that I had. I had Spice Girls on there. I had Gypsy Kings. I had Savage Garden. I had deep house music, and it's just honestly the best playlist. So I feel like I need to share it with you guys if you guys are intrigued in my birth playlist. Anyway, so then the obstetrician comes in, we link up the speaker, he chats to us about what's going to happen. He has a moment with Tyrone and I being like, all right, this is like the most mind-blowing moment of your life. So just like take it all in, be really present, just milk this moment. And then we get wheeled into the theater. And that's when they transfer me onto like the operating table. So they move me from the bed that I was in onto the operating table. And then they start like prepping me. So I get like a catheter put in, then the obstetrician goes off, gets fully scrubbed up, comes back. They're putting up that curtain in between and they're painting me with like betadine They've linked me up to all these monitors, and my sister was laughing so much because her whoop was going off, and it was like, are you working out? Do you need to track this workout? And Stephanie's like, my heart rate is at like 109, and it's normally her resting heart rate's like 50. And so it was just going crazy. So she's like, I'm going to track your birth as my workout. So she was doing that, and we could see my heart rate. It was just 55. I was so calm the whole time. My heart rate was really chilled. And then before we knew it, before that, my obstetrician, he's such a legend. He's like, everything had to be perfect. And he's like, I'm very vain. Your scar's going to look great. Don't worry about it. And I was wearing those like ugly shower cap things that you have to wear in like a theater. And he comes and he looks at me and he's trying to like fix the shower cap on my head, and then he grabs it and he pulls it off and he tosses it. He's like, she won't be wearing that. And then he fixes the cap on Tyrone and Stephen. He's like, great, now we're ready for the photos. And then we started the surgery because they were taking photos as well of the whole event. They take photos of the baby, of me, everything, and then it's, they edit it and then they send it to us after the birth. So we got these like epic photos of the birth that he got his staff to take. Anyway, so he starts the whole procedure, and Stephanie is giving me a full play-by-play of the surgery. She's looking back around the curtain being like, now they're cutting this, now they're cutting that, now they're cutting this layer, now they're cutting... And Tyrone's like, oh my God, like, I don't want to hear it. And I'm like, tell me more, tell me all the details. I'm so into all of that. I love surgery. I love, as you guys know, like all this shit. So I was really into it. And then Stephanie kept wrapping her head around the curtain, and they're like, oh, if you want to be on this side, just let us know. We'll give you a mask. So they gave her a proper mask, and then she was on the other side where they were doing the surgery. And then all of a sudden, like, it felt so fast. All of a sudden, they're like, all right, the baby's coming out. We didn't know the gender, mind you. So they dropped the curtain down. The anaesthetist is lifting my head and shoulders because obviously I can't lift myself up. I'm like completely numb from like the rib cage down. And where I'm watching the baby, twin A, get like pulled out. And then, at the same time, Tyrone, Justin, Stephanie, they're like, it's a boy. And they lift him up. And it was just, oh my God, it was so unbelievable. But given that they were twins, given that they're born preemie at 37 weeks, I didn't have the chance to have the baby straight up onto my chest. They had to take it straight away to that little like cot thing with the pediatrician to check that they were getting adequate oxygen, that they were breathing properly, all of that. So there was a little bit of a pause before I was actually able to grab them. So what they had done is they had set up a screen right next to my face, so I'm able to look at the baby being taken to that like cot thing where the pediatrician is with them. So it was really, they'd really thought of everything, so that way I feel really comfortable and secure with everything that was happening. And they needed to check if the babies needed to go to special care nursery or not, because there was a big chance that they would need to go to special care, because a lot of twins do end up in special care. Not the NICU, because that's normally the NICU is when they're even like way more preemie, but they might need like oxygen and things like that. But they didn't. So they took the twin A, we hadn't named him yet. This ended up being Santiago, but they took twin A, and then they're already starting to birth twin B. And kind of, I can't explain to you how hard the nurses and the other like obstetrician had to push on my tummy. I could feel the pushing so hard. You feel pressure, but you don't feel pain. You don't feel any temperature. They pushed so hard. And then there's a video of it. I would share it, but I'd probably get like banned on Instagram for like sharing like graphic videos. But it was unbelievable. They're pushing so hard to push twin B further down. And it's just crazy. Like, I think we think that, it's so fragile. It's like the body's quite resilient, and babies, newborns are actually really resilient as well. Then they're birthing, like they're pushing out twin B. They were born 6 minutes apart. And a lot of people are like, wow, that's a really long time. I feel like it's not that long. And also I think that it's, they get the head out, then they wait a bit, they're wiping the baby's face, they're trying to get the baby to start breathing, and then they pull the baby out. So I don't know. I just feel like 6 minutes isn't that long, but other people were like, wow, that's so long. Anyway, so they pulled twin B out again. There was like 16 people in this room. There were so many people. There was like 2 of everything, 2 midwives, 2 this, 2 that, 2 pediatricians, because they needed a team for each baby in case something went wrong. Anyway, then they check both babies. Tyrone goes over. Tyrone's cutting the umbilical cords. And then finally they wrap the babies up and they bring them and they put both the babies on my chest. And for the first time, that's when I started crying and my heart rate went up. And Stephanie was like, the time when your heart rate went up was when you like were lifted up and you saw the babies. And then when they were put on your chest and, when like I was just looking at them, it was just an unbelievable moment. I cannot explain it. I had this feeling from 16 weeks that I would be having boys. I always wanted girls. And then at 16 weeks, I was like, I think I'm having boys. So I had this moment of like, I need to really just picture my life with both genders, because why is it that I see myself with girls? Why do I prefer girls? And then when I had this moment of really asking myself those questions, I'm like, I actually don't have a preference now. Now that I've really pictured my life with 2 boys or 2 girls, I don't have a preference. But I really felt that they were boys after 16 weeks. And they were. And it was just incredible. So they put them on my chest. It was just unbelievable. And then they had to, I'm just trying to think. I feel like there's like patches of my memory that's a bit foggy. But then they took the twins again to do a few more further checks. And that's when they started stitching me back up. Then they would put the twins back on. They finished stitching me back up. There was like, it's a full on thing. They've got to stitch like 7 layers, but he was very like swift and quick. The fastest thing was birthing the babies. The thing that takes the longest is the sewing back up. And he's a bit of a perfectionist, but he did a really swift, quick job. Then they like wipe you down. Mind you, you can't feel a fucking thing. You're still numb. You're lying horizontal. So they've got to kind of like roll you to the side, wipe you, roll you to the side, wipe you, get rid of my compression stockings because they were covered in blood. Like it's full on. It's pretty gory. And then from there, they wheel us into the recovery room. And that's where they gave the twins a vitamin K injection immediately after they're born, and then they give the twins an injection for Hep B, I'm pretty sure it is, when we go into the recovery room. And that's where they're doing all like the little tags, they're tagging their feet, they're doing this, they're doing that. And for the first time, that's when I put each of them on the boob. So I'm doing like a tandem feed, and they're like trying to get the colostrum. And that's when we FaceTimed. We FaceTimed my parents. My parents are in Sydney. They were just like down the road, but we FaceTimed them when they were like on the chest, and then we FaceTimed Liv, of course, when I was in the recovery room, and she was in South Africa like for a wedding, and I think it was like 5 a.m. in the morning, and we woke her up, and she was like, oh my god, screaming, crying, and her partner Patricia was like, what the fuck is going on at 5 o'clock in the morning? She's like, the babies are born. So yeah, it was just incredible, and we were there for about an hour. They were like checking all my vitals and everything, and then from there we were wheeled into the room that I was at with the twins, and they didn't need special care. They were on my chest the whole time for ages. And then the whole family started coming to visit. When I tell you there was at one point, there was probably 20 people. I'm not exaggerating. I think maybe 18 or 20 people in the room at one time, this small room. Tyrone's parents, sister, her kids, my cousins, my parents obviously were already there. Like it was just unbelievable. It was the best day of my life, to the extent that like the surge of hormones that you get when that happens, like it was so emotional meeting the twins that night I was like looking at the twins. I was like giving them a feed. Tyrone had fallen asleep. Everything had gone quiet. And I remember just looking at these 2 babies like crying, but just purely happiness. Like it was just like so much emotion. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm looking at them. I can't believe it. And it was a lot of gratitude as well for feeling like how well everything went, that, you know, that they were healthy, that our whole family had been there, that we had all this support. I don't know, like it was just the biggest wave of positive emotion I think I've ever felt. It was very, very intense. And also like there's the oxytocin that gets released. So you're feeling very mushy emotionally. Well, I did at least. I felt like a bag of emotions. And it was positive emotions, but, you know, you would touch me and I would be like, oh, like I'd want to cry, but I felt really good and I felt happy. But it's something that I really haven't experienced to that extent of like that level of emotion. Anyway, then we were there in the hospital for 5 days, and every day we would have, you know, my sister, my parents, you know, Tyrone's family, friends would come and visit. And it was just such a beautiful time in the hospital that by the time the 5th day rolled around, I was getting a little bit like I really didn't want that 5th day to roll around. It was so weird because I was so ready to be home. I was so ready to get the kids home, to be in our own space, to not be woken up like every hour to get your vitals tested, like, you know, your blood pressure and all of that done. But I just felt so protected in that bubble. It was like the end of the first era of the kids' lives, if that makes sense. I don't know how to explain it. And I was really sad for that era to end. It was bittersweet, and you know, you have all this support from the midwives. The midwives were unbelievable. Can I just say also, what is it about Irish midwives? They're so amazing. There's something about Irish women who are nurses that it's like this next level of care, and they're just so warm and amazing. I just shout out to Irish. All the nurses were amazing, mind you, at the Mater, but the Irish nurses were I just obsessed. Anyway, and yeah, you just feel so like cared for. And Tyrone, we opted for a bigger room. You paid a little bit extra and we got a bigger room. So we had like a double bed. So Tyrone was there the whole time. We slept in the same bed. He didn't leave the hospital other than to get us food. So it was really nice for us to be there for the 5 days, just like the 4 of us there. Habib, mind you, our dog Habib was with my parents. And then, yeah, when I was at the hospital, you could do all these classes as well at the Mater. So one was, like bringing the children home. One was a breastfeeding class. One was the physio class. And I did the physio class, and they do an assessment on all the mums there on your separation, and they gave me like a belly band to kind of help like bring your abs a little bit closer together, and to support your back, of course. And when she tested, like she had me lying down and doing a few things, and my separation at the hospital was 10 centimeters. This is extreme. All the other mums were like 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters, 3.5, 2 centimeters. And then I was last, and she was like, yeah, yours is 10. And the other mums were like, oh, and she was like, yes, she carried twins and one of them was horizontal. So I literally, my abs were so stretched out. They were so like loose and floppy, and I felt like jelly. Like the next morning, because mind you, when you have the cesarean, you don't walk until the next morning. I didn't get out of bed until 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning the next day. And I stood up. They removed the catheter. I stood up and I was like, oh my God, I've got no abs, no structural integrity. I feel like jelly. And it's different to when you're pregnant, because you've got something pushing against your belly. So it's kind of like you've got this firmness in there that you're stable. This was like, there's no stability. And I needed help from Tyrone to like walk me to the bathroom, and Tyrone had to shower me. Good times. And yeah, like sitting in this chair in this weird shower. Anyway, so that was a journey from there to now. And that was like 6 weeks ago now. So it's crazy how fast the body starts to like heal if you give it space and time to heal. Anyway, so 10 centimeters was the separation. Actually, by the time that you guys listen to this episode, so I'm recording this on Friday, it's going to come out on Monday. I will be at my physio appointment, because I cannot wait. I cannot wait to get back into training. And it's not about, oh my God, I've got to like get my body back, whatever. It's how it makes me feel. You guys know that like exercise is such a big part of my life. It's therapy. It is therapy for the brain and for the body, and it's everything. I love it. I love running. I love weight. I just can't wait. But I've had to ease into it. So you should see like the workouts that I do at the moment. It's rehab. It's just breathing exercises that I'm doing, like particular breathing exercises where it's like bracing. It's lying flat and then extending one leg out at a time and bringing it back and extending. It's like standing and lifting one leg up at a time. It's like, it's not a workout. I'm just rehabbing, and I'm fine. I'm happy. I'm okay with that. It's just that I'm just really excited to get to training, and I just feel like my separation will still be quite big. So I've got a bit of a journey ahead of me. But you know what? I'm happy to, if I have to take longer doing these rehab exercises, it's fine. I think in the long run, that's the best way to do it. Rushing into exercise is just going to prolong my actual healing overall. So I've got to do the right thing. But anyway, yeah, 10 centimeters, fun times ahead. Woo! Anyway, I think I'm ready to kind of start answering all your questions. There's like so much more like ins and outs of like the birth story, but that was like the birth. And since then, it's just been unbelievable. But I feel like I'll be answering a lot of the questions about the twins while I answer your questions. Okay, now, given that this episode's going to go quite long, the questions, I'm going to be answering all your questions now, but that episode is going to come on Friday. So instead of a Head Noise episode, the Friday will be all your questions around birth, pregnancy, all the above. So stay tuned for that. There's a whole bunch of questions that I'm going to be getting through, which is very exciting. But guys, thank you so much for being interested in the pregnancy journey. There's a lot more to come. I'll be explaining where my head is at in the next episode on Friday about, you know, how much I'm going to be sharing on the podcast, because I've had a lot of people ask me if I'm going to be doing more stuff around parenting, and I've been like really torn because I don't want to change my podcast, but I do want to be catering to that audience as well. So I'll be sharing what where my head is at with that as well. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in and for wanting to be invested emotionally in my journey. I love you guys so much. As always, remember, be kind to yourself, be kind to your brain. Don't take shit from anyone, and especially don't take shit from yourself. Danke.